Now, in this first period, we have a report from Marc Wheat and from Dr. Turnage. Marc, in 50 years or more of the Germanna Foundation, Marc Wheat is only our fourth president. Twice on the transitions of those presidents, we've had a minor, almost catastrophe or disaster, a shortage of time in which to prepare for the seminar or for the reunion. And in both of those occasions, Marc Wheat has come to the fore to help. And on the last occasion, he came forth so strongly that he's now president of the foundation. And we're in very, very capable hands. So maybe he inherited these leadership genes from his ancestor. Who are his ancestors? Reverend Hager, Fishbach, and Rector. Perhaps that's where he acquired his leadership. But then again, he's a sixth generation Hoosier. So maybe somewhere out there in the Midwest he acquired some help. You might, looking at him, would you believe that he has a college degree in Spanish? He also is a lawyer. He's worked in public service for most of his life. Again, it seems like he's always at the moment of need straightening out people. He currently, as I understand it, is a counsel to a member of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Easy job, right? So, but Marc has responded very readily, and we also appreciate the fact that he incorporates his family into the work of the Germanna Foundation. So I give you now Marc Wheat. Let me just...
Thank you, and good morning. We're going to have a busy day. We're going to be putting a lot of things before you and give us ideas for the future, but we are going to be asking for much more involvement than we ever have before. So as you hear us talk about the things that we're doing, remember this is all done by volunteers. If we had more volunteers, we could do more things. So let me introduce our report for 2009. This was my last slide last year, and I think for a historical organization, it's always important to start at the beginning, whereas last year we ended at the beginning. So these are my children. They are walking the lanes of Salubria, and that's our future. And we just want to think, too, as a historical organization, we're always thinking backwards 300 years. And so we are doing a lot of work to document that 300-year journey because we know every person's life has meaning and importance and some purpose, and we want to share that with future generations. But unlike a lot of historical organizations, we are also looking forward 300 years. And those are the things I want you to be thinking about as we go through the day of how you, the leaders of your families, can use this opportunity, use the Germanna Foundation to create a legacy in your family so that your lives will be remembered by future generations. I love this quote by Carl Sandburg. When a society or a civilization perishes, one condition can always be found: they forgot where they came from. And I think it's important to remember where we came from. We came from a small group of German settlers that came in 1714 that were then the frontier of the British Empire. And it was German-speaking. And 3 years later, to join the German Reformed families, a larger group of interrelated families who were German Lutherans came in 1717, which happens to have been the bicentennial of the Reformation. So I wonder how those group of German Reformed people and German Lutherans celebrated Reformation Sunday in October of 1717. You know, we always think that they're just constantly working at the plow or you know, hewing wood, drawing water, but they had celebrations too. And I think it's important that we had that shared experience worshiping in the fort together, speaking in our own language, in a strange land, and having to learn more English to understand the Spotswoods and the people that were around the Spotswoods, and thinking about, you know, what do we want to have for our future generations once we leave this fort? What's life going to be like for us in America? And so here are some of the Germanna colonial families that knew each other in the fort, or they came a little bit later as the family started to spread out up into the Robinson River Valley, out into Fauquier County in Germantown. And many of these names are still very common in these 5 counties. It's really remarkable. And we have some of them up there on display. You'll find that all of these names are in a little Germanna word search that's in your packet, and you'll have to sit there like kids and find all the names and everything. But there are many more names that we're identifying all the time and documenting and putting them up on our website. And what's fascinating is that in just a few years from being loyal subjects to the crown, maybe it was because they sat around their hearths and discussed how they were a little bit deceived when they left Germany and came to America penniless because the ships weren't ready, or they had an indenture that was somewhat unfair. You know, maybe they didn't think so highly of the way they were treated by the English. And so a few years later, many of them were members of the Culpeper Minutemen and fought for our country's independence so that we could make our own determinations on how we best live our lives and live in freedom here in America. And incidentally, these flags are for sale out here. I just bought one. I was delighted to discover it. I'm president, but I'm discovering things all the time. And so here we are. In the year 2000, we built the Broadus R. Martin Germanna Visitor Center. And for those of you who are pretty new to Germanna, this was designed to be a pentagon in the shape of the original fort and the original blockhouse. So you have the exterior walls there, but sort of an inner pentagon up on top, which recalls the blockhouse, where the first German Reformed church was. So it's marked with meaning. The architect was Doug Harnsberger, a Germanna descendant. He not only gave us so much of his time, but he also gave us the ship that's on top of the weather vane on top of the building that recalls our ancestors coming to America using the latest technology at the time. But how did we get from the fort to here? Well, recent history shows what just a few little actions can do. If you give even a small gift in love and not really expecting anything in return, how it can just grow and grow and grow. In the 1890s, there was a lot of research being done in preparation for the Kemper and the Fishback genealogies, where they would start communicating with Germany. And there was earlier research by a man named Hinke, who was a historian of the German Reformed Church, which has now been absorbed into the United Churches of Christ. He had written to the pastors in some of these small villages to get information on the ancestors of these German immigrants. And so that was remembered, those contacts, those renewed contacts, by some of these villages. And so when Musen was celebrating one of their significant anniversaries, I think it might have been their 300th anniversary, they had record of this contact. And so they wrote to Virginia for more information about what happened to all the Germanna people that came from Musen and the other areas of the Siegerland. And so this went back and forth for some number of years when the city of Siegen asked for an article to be written by Dr. Huffman commemorating the reconstruction of the Nikolaikirche in Siegen after it had been bombed by the Allies. So it was being rebuilt, and they wanted some sort of letter of goodwill from the Americans of Siegerland descendants. And that letter was published in the same newspaper that covers our annual trips to Germany, and it was picked up by a sister of a German in Siegen who had made it very successful life in Wall Street, and he was so touched by it, he got in touch with Dr. Huffman, and several years later gave us the money to buy 270 acres of our ancestral homeland. Remarkable. And it all started from a postage stamp. So we have that to thank. You know, we think back on Ernst Flender, who was the donor, who helped us buy 270 acres. But back that up another 50 years, it started with a genealogist trying to turn over some records that were in musty archives in Germany. So you just never know. So we're delighted that we are on a new upward path where we have a new executive director. He's not a stranger to Germanna by any stretch. In 1969, the Germanna Foundation donated 100 acres of land to build the Germanna Community College. And for over 20 years, was it 22, Frank? 22 years, Frank was the president of Germanna Community College, which started there at Locust Grove and now has 3 campuses, this being the latest crowning achievement of Dr. Turnage's time as president. And I'd like to welcome him to the podium for your welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Now, I want us to have a little cheer because we need to build some enthusiasm. We have great things going on here. Now, the little cheer is Germanna, Germanna, Germanna. And I want everyone to join in. Okay, here we go. Germanna, Germanna, Germanna. I am delighted to see every one of you who is here. I've had a few opportunities to talk with a number of you individually, and I hope that before you leave this weekend, I will have had the opportunity to speak with those of you personally whom I've not yet had that opportunity. I think this is an extremely exciting time for this foundation, and some of you, may wonder why I'm here at this particular time. I left the college in March of 2007, and in March of 2009, I accepted this position. So I've only been technically in the position a short time. As Marc mentioned, I've been acquainted with this organization for many years. I believe in it. I'm sorry to tell you, and I'm sincere about this, I am not a descendant, but I am up for adoption. And that works. It can work. I'm not going to try to recognize anyone individually by name because I'm certain I would make a mess of that and leave somebody very important out. But I do want to communicate to you that all of this today and what we had yesterday and what we'll be having this evening and tomorrow morning, it has taken the earnest commitment, and I'll have to say passion of your cousins and relatives and friends to bring all of this together. We're very excited that this annual reunion has grown to this point. Yes, we are having growing pains, Yes, we know that our reunions will continue to become better and better, and you can help us with that. You can help us with that by giving us your suggestions and feedback, which we very much welcome. I hope that you will remember us throughout the year. I hope that this will not, for you, become a one-hit weekend, but that you will stay in continuous contact with us throughout the year, through our newsletters, through other means, by sending me an email, by giving me a telephone call, or whatever it may be. I'm always delighted to hear from all of you. And this is not about, I'm sorry, Mark, it's not about Mark Weed, it's not about me, it's not about our other trustees, it's not about Jim Albin, president of the association, and the people who work with him. This is about you. It is all about you. And the only reason that Mark, excuse me, Mark, if I'm wrong, you can say so, but the only reason that Mark is here and I'm here and these other leaders are here is because of you. If it were not for you, we would have no organization. And without your dedication, support, and most of all, your enthusiasm and passion, we could not exist or continue to exist as an organization. So I thank you for bringing this as President Emeritus of the college. I'm also very pleased to welcome all of you to the Joseph R. Daniel Technology Center. For those of you who may not know, Mr. Daniel is a local businessman and a philanthropist who made this facility possible. Thank you very much. I'll be around throughout the day.
We're just absolutely delighted to have Frank on staff, and he's been just invaluable in giving us great ideas and moving us all forward. I also want to introduce, I don't know if they are here in this room, but we have two interns that I want you to meet. This is Ricarda Ernert, being draped by the German flag, and Alex Marhanke, who has the Illinois flag, showing where they're from. Alex is a Hager Rector Fishback descendant. He lives in Illinois and attends a Lutheran college up in called Carthage College up in Wisconsin on Lake Michigan. And Ricarda Ernert is a student studying international tourism in an English-speaking university in the Netherlands. She is from Oberholtzklau, Germany. And she is from one of these ancestral villages that we care so much about. Her grandmother, her late grandmother, was a member of the Germanna Foundation. And what's also remarkable about Ricarda and Alex is they're cousins. 14th cousins. Ricarda is a descendant of the grandfather of Jacob Holtzklau, the immigrant. And so because we know who her grandfather is, we've been able to tie her up to a man named Teil von Fischbach, who was the ancestor of all the Fischbachs and one of the common links between everyone in the first colony. So she is related to about half of the trustees who's ever been involved with the Germanna Foundation. So we really want, that's one of the things that we want to do, is be more intentional with our work in having Germans come over to America and receive hospitality from Germanna descendants and build up those linkages between our two countries. And how do we do that? How do we link people up? You know, just the way the Germanna Foundation was with writing little genealogical inquiries to Germany, and it, you know, yielded a visitor center after about 60 years. We put a lot of emphasis on writing genealogy because we have found that it's very, very hard to get people to volunteer or contribute money or to write for us unless there is some family tie. to Germanna. And so when we have scholars like Kathy Clore Frost, who's a member of the Germanna Association Board, and she wrote our first new series of books of the Germanna record. She wrote the first 4 generations of the Michael Clore family in our new format. We're very proud of it, and it's very important what she is doing. She's also a model for our new Germanna line of apparel. John Blankenbaker, the foremost scholar of Germanna, former trustee. He is the author of our newest book, The Second Germanna Colony and Other Families, and he has modeled for us in a Clore chair. And when he started doing genealogy, that was a sapling behind him there. And what we also have to remember is while we are doing genealogy and writing about history, we're making history. And Catherine Brown, her book on the first 50 years of the foundation, records things that we all kind of know. But if once our generation passes, this is going to be an important historic record. And while she was doing doing this history, she discovered things in the foundation's archives that none of us had ever seen or known. And it's just very, very interesting, some of the conflict between the early organizers of the picnic and the early organizers of the foundation. And after a while, things kind of came together, but it was not smooth sailing at first. So you always have to remember that. So we're delighted that there's Catherine and our memorial garden in the background. Oh, and I actually have to do this periodically. I have to point things out with my new pointer. That's Catherine Brown, because I told my wife I really, really needed this for the reunion. So when you see her, tell her I actually used my new laser pointer. In 2001. Sort of a break in pattern. Typically we get great gifts and volunteers from among descendants. We were given the most important structure in Culpeper County by the Grayson family, who were not descendants. But why did they give us Salubria, which was the home of Governor Spotswood's widow and the home of her husband, Reverend John Thompson, who was the 4th rector at the Little Fork Church. Little Fork was voted into existence at Germanna, and many of the Little Fork colony, the other Germanna relatives, worshipped at the Little Fork Church. They gave us Salubria because they had confidence that there were so many Germanna descendants stepping up to the plate that we would be a better steward of Salubria than the government. And so that is a high compliment, but also a high duty. And so I love this picture. This is, let me get my clicker. That is a doorway in Salubria. And this photograph was made for a National Geographic Society book called The Journey Through Hallowed Ground. And so Salubria is in there. This is one of the key photographs and something that they sell on their website. The Germanna Foundation is credited for owning and taking care of Salubria. And I just think that this is just a wonderful picture of what it's like to be with the Germanna Foundation and to sort of step through these portals and take a trip through time. And one of the key things that we have done in the last several years, 8, this is the 7th one. We have had 7 pilgrimages to our ancestral villages in Germany. And you see just astonishing things you didn't think would have survived. This chalice is the very same chalice that's used in communion. It was used by Reverend Henry Hager before he emigrated to America. It is still used in Oberfischbach, just uniting those succeeding generations of people from Oberfischbach. And here is the baptismal and death records that are used in Oberfischbach, and these records are turned to the page where it's written in Henry Hager's hand. Just remarkable things. Here's a wonderful photograph that I love of the Hitts discovering their ancestral farm in Germany. And the man who did the work for us is Horst Schneider here on the right. He is a trustee of the Germanna Foundation. He lives in Freudenberg, which is the same village where one of my ancestors, Jakob Friesenhagen, was the Burgermeister in the 1660s. And so he has done a lot of work for us, for the foundation, to knit us together with many, many organizations in Germany. And he's just a remarkable treasure. And there we have Russell and Joan Hitt and Mary Doyle Johnson here on the left. I don't recall who the other woman is. Is she? Lisa Kramer. So she's one of the Americans. Oh, she's a German. Oh, okay, okay. Very good, very good. Here's the ancestral rector house in Trutbach, Germany. But we can't see that structure because in World War II, it was destroyed in a firefight between retreating Nazis and American troops. But what survives is the floor of the entryway that's used it's made out of river rocks. And it was this floor that they walked out of their front door and came to America. And so here we have returned a group of Americans and Germans. This is Fritz and Theo Bottenberg and Rudi Schneider, our German cousins, whose ancestors also lived in that house with Americans who have come back to see their ancestral home. And here's my photograph of the wee rectors sitting on a part of that floor. One of the trips that we've made, the Bottenbergs had cut a portion of the floor out and sent it back to Germanna so that other descendants would have that same sort of experience of touching the floor of the entryway of the rector house. And here's Horst Schneider. We talked a little bit about Germanna in Germany. He's an officer in the German American Society, and he was very, very helpful in helping us find our au pair from the Siegerland. This is Annalie Mancha. She's in the back. Why don't you stand up, Annalie? So she has spent a year with our family raising these two little monsters, and it's just been really wonderful. And so we would like to see more Germanna families work to find these au pairs from the Kraichgau and also in the Siegerland so that we can build up more contacts over time that will help all of us navigate our way through Germany. And so kind of on that theme of building right relationships, which is a wonderful term I have recently come encounter with, is that we have joined many of the counties, the chambers of commerce for the different counties that surround Germanna so that we can make the business community understand more fully how important it is for historic preservation and historic preservation opportunities, because it brings business to these 5 counties. And we can talk about our tours that we do and how much people care about this area. And we've even qualified to join the Northern Piedmont Federal Credit Union. So If you're a little bit suspicious of how your money might be being used by New York City, you can open up an account here, park it, and it will be doing lots of good here in Germanna country. Yesterday we had Reverend James Shaw say the prayer for dedicating our memorial stones and the Russell and Joan Hitt trail. I met him doing research in the Germanna Foundation's library. He was researching one of the early pastors of Hebron Lutheran Church, and I asked, wow, how did you find us? He was like, oh, well, I'm starting up a church and we're meeting in Germanna Community College on Sundays. So that's like a nice turn of events, and so we're very friendly with him and supporting the things that he's doing. And they could not get Germanna Community College for a Thanksgiving Eve service, so they had it at the Visitor Center, which may have been the first worship service conducted there since colonial times. And so we also, Catherine Brown and I and Madison Brown, welcomed the new rector at his installation. This is Bill Eberly, here on the right, of Little Fort Church, which is important to Germanna. It was voted into existence at Germanna. It was the center of the Little Fort colony. The suffragan bishop is there in the middle, and I just think it's remarkable how PowerPoint presentations put 50 pounds on you. It's just really... One thing, too, that we're doing is part of our effort of opening up Germanna to the larger community and showing how what we do is valuable to people who live in the community, is that we have put a lot of emphasis and a lot of effort and a lot of money to develop our forest, which is pretty much, nothing's been really happening with it since 1956. And so we're putting in scouting trails and opportunities for Eagle Scout projects. And we want the far end of our land, there's probably 100 acres east of the community college, where it's very inaccessible, very difficult terrain, perfect for wilderness camping. And we want to open that up for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, church groups, to build leadership among the local people here. And here we have a picture of Boy Scout Troop 991 from Springfield camping out in Seguin Forest. We sponsor our own Germanna Boy Scout Troop 199, and you saw a couple of them last night who did the honors for the flag. Johnny Brochu, who was the one who was carrying the American flag, he has asked to do an Eagle Scout project